One of the dangers sometimes of teaching online is that if an instructor doesn't have a face, a student might not have a face either. They're just someone submitting papers. You don't really know who this person is. You don't really necessarily know how their ideas are developing or how their mind is working beyond what they're showing you in these discrete assignments. So discussion board, I think, gives you more insight into the student's thought process. It gives you more insight into how he or she is developing learning-wise.
We've got students from all over the world. We've got students who might be, deployed, and they might be over in, South Korea.
A lot of our online students are taking these classes because it's specifically career-driven, and so some of them may already be in the career that they're taking classes toward, and some may not, but are looking to become a member of that career field.
It's that piece, that opportunity to engage with their instructor, to engage with their peers, and share ideas, take risks.
And so one side with the experience and the other side with the desire and passion can come together and learn from each other.
So one of the reasons that we have that discussion is to help sort of facilitate that classroom feel.
But I think in online courses, it's particularly important to have that piece of that feedback mechanism built in, where students are able to not only engage with the content but ask questions, where the instructor can come in and help clarify, maybe perform some formative assessment within the framework of that discussion board.
This is kind of that chance to kind of demonstrate that they're starting to understand that before we give them an assignment or a quiz on it.
So what are some best practices for writing discussion prompts?
I think, again, it goes back to creating discussion questions that are engaging and interesting, provokes that sense of curiosity in a student, and kind of pokes them and makes them want to answer and share their knowledge.
When you're thinking about a discussion board post, it's got to at least be open-ended for starters. It has to be able to have something that a student can come in and write and expound and explain and give some justification for their answer.
I think, too, a good way to frame discussion prompts is to base them on a current event or something that is applicable in the field or in the student's area of professional interest.
It should also ideally open up conversation. There should be room for not conflict, but for disagreement, and for students to be able to hash out why they feel the way they do about something.
Also ask them to include some things like experience or opinion that are going to pull in pieces that only they could share. That's not necessarily going to be something that another student would write.
And so I think pulling in resources and attaching them to a discussion prompt is oftentimes a good way to get students talking.
I think the other piece that has to happen, and this is what I saw when I was a student, was that community really started to build when one student began to help another student understand a concept, or one student shared an experience that helped highlight how the concept could be used in an everyday situation.
I think sometimes you can structure this by having smaller groups within the class, maybe 2 or 3 students. You're essentially assigning them a type of question to come up with, or at least providing them with some parameters for a question, and then they can populate a thread of the discussion board and kind of moderate the other students who are discussing the ideas.
You're going to want something that you'll have 30 different students in your course, and you'll want those students to be able to answer it 30 different ways. And
I think sometimes too, having a discussion board where you're asking students to go out and do a little bit of research, again providing them some sense of direction in terms of where to go for that research is helpful.
Such as, show us an article that discusses the topic for the week. Why is it relevant? Why is it significant to our course? What does this mean to you?
Sometimes actually embedding an article or something that you found that you think is an interesting piece of content that might sort of prod students into discussion is always helpful.
Bring in a resource that we could share in class that we could use in further assignments.
Those types of things kind of liven up the discussion. They make sure that each post is unique, and then it also gives the students kind of a jumping off point to respond.
give part of your assignment that's due at the end of the week, put it up on the board and have other students peer edit it.
Because the last thing you want is a discussion where everybody writes something and the responses are, yes, I agree with you. I agree with you, and why? I agree with you, and I've had a similar experience to what you've had, and it looks like this, is better because you've given them a chance to talk about their own personal experiences.
When a student is able to find their own resources or find their own their work and have it out and display in front of other people, that's when the true kind of magic happens in discussion boards, because students want to be seen and they want to be understood and they want to be validated.
And it'll also make the instructor's job a little more enjoyable, because they won't be responding to the same answer 30 times within their course. So.